Hey guys, Vol here. Let's talk about another game, a bat rep between Combined Army and YuJing on one of the new ITS 9 missions. It's an old mission revamped, it's Frontline. So, first thing I want to say about this bat rep is that it's a really derpy sort of game. There were some really dumb mistakes in this game in terms of like decisions as to what to do, as well as us forgetting the rules for a couple of important things. So I just want to apologize for that. It's going to be a bit of a miss game, but you know, as always, you complete a game of an infinity and you have a good time and you learn things, and we can still see some exciting action despite that. So bear with us on that one. Alright, Frontline is a mission which I have always despised. I've always thought of it as one of the worst missions in ITS, and the reason for that is that if you get the second turn, it's going to mean that you get the last turn during which the scoring is done, and you get to look at the 3 strips of scoring through the middle of the battlefield, if you look at the mission for Frontline. And you get to go, okay, well I can easily capture the one closest to my deployment zone, and my opponent in their final turn has put some models in their closer strip and through the middle strip. So all I need to do is look at the models that they've put in those 2 strips and figure out, well, which strip is going to be the easiest for me to capture, and if I capture either of them, then I win, right? So because it's so easy to do that, or so much easier for the second player to do that than it is for the first player to put things in those zones, second player almost always wins. It makes it even easier for player 2 if they've got airborne deployment troopers or hidden deployment troopers to easily walk through to those zones as well, or baggage, things like that. Or if it's a bit of a tight contest, maybe just shoot the thing that's standing there, which they can easily get to, or kill it in close combat. I digress. So the new version has improved it a little bit in the sense that with your data tracker, if you have your data tracker in the middle strip, it means that you get more points than you would have before. Also, there's a classified, so there is a possibility of, as the first player, putting something expensive in the zone closest to their deployment zone and controlling the one closest to you, and coming out with more points, even if they capture the middle one, or putting a lot of troops in the middle zone, having a data tracker there as well, and even if they ignore the middle and move something to your deployment zone and capture that as well, it could actually be a draw if you've got your classified. So there's a little bit more to it. It's still heavily favored for the second player, but it's brought it a little bit closer to the possibility of gaining a draw or even winning without having to go second. Okay, so let's get into it. The other thing about this game is that I wanted to create an army list. In fact, before I go into my list, let's just actually have a look at the battlefield. So, I've created, as usual, a table that has some long fire lanes, but also has a lot of density at the same time. I feel like generally that's the way to do it. So there's a line through here which doesn't exactly work for the deployment on other sides, but you can control that line if you want to. There's a bit of a line through this side as well. There's some very skewed lines through this bit here, but the blockages are kind of awkward. As soon as you get on top of this building, you can see some things, but this building here is obscuring you. So we've done that. Just want to point out with, say, a red pen here, the deployment zone is somewhere along there for my deployment zone, and somewhere along here for the other player. And that means the middle strips are just roughly through this point here, if you guys can visualize that. So obviously from Combined Army's deployment zone here, where I'm playing Combined Army, I get, I think, 1 point for controlling this. 4 points plus 1 point if I have the data tracker, and 5 points. I'm actually just going to check ITS 9 real quick, just to make sure that I'm not deluding myself. Probably should have done that before starting the bat rip, but that's okay. So Frontline is page 27. Let's just scroll down to that. And it says, so central sector is 3 plus 1, and then the furthest one is 4 points. Okay, all right, so let's go back to the photo. It's, so if I just rub this out, oh, it's not even the rubber. Racer. So what did that say? The central one's 3 plus 1, and the furthest one's 4. Okay, now I get it. So 3 plus 1, and the furthest one's 4. So let's say during this game, I capture just the middle one, and my opponent gets the one closest to him and the one closest to me. My opponent gets 5 points. I will get 4 points, and I can get a draw by completing the classified. So my opponent may not win that way. So that becomes kind of interesting too. It's also a little bit harder to go and get the one further away from you, so that does make a bit of a difference. Still, again, it's still a pretty bad mission. Alright, so back to the army list that I'm playing here. The fun thing about this army is that I have the Charontid, or the Charontid, however you want to call it. I'm going to call it the Charontid, with a heavy machine gun. So multi-spectral visor 3, heavy machine gun. And in the same list, I've got an Anathaematic. So that's 2 tag sort of like models. It's like a 2 tag list, 2 80-point roughly models, and then 8 other models to make a 10 order group. And the Anathaematic is the plasma rifle and Sepsitor. Obviously, both of them have mnemonica, but the Charontid is the lieutenant. The thinking here is that if I go first, and my opponent is just planning on having second turn to win, well, how much damage can I cause with an Anathaematic that has 10 orders attached to it? It can move across the board in marker state and then start blasting things with plasma up close. Plasma guns don't really allow models to survive. I mean, you're having to take 2 dice rolls for every hit. There's impact plasma, you're ignoring cover. But this particular Charontid has the Sepsitor, so imagine if I take over even one heavy infantry model with my Sepsitor in my opening turn. How hard is that going to make it for my opponent to win this mission? And the thought is that if I do capture something and I move it into one of the zones, well, that's extra points that I've just flipped over to me, so that could make a big difference. The weakness of this list, of course, is, though, that I'm very short on orders. Excuse me, had a bit of a sneeze there. So looking at deployment, this is a view from my right-hand side. By the way, I've won the role and opted to go first, even though this is a second turn win mission. This is a experiment to see how well I can do with first turn and to run through my plan of sepsitorizing things with the Anathaematic. So from right to left, we've got the Daciarati chain rifle, Bit and Kiss. These guys are cool because of killer hacking, maestro, pitcher, you name it. They're cheap, they gain an extra order. I'll spend more time talking about them in another video, but I don't spend a single order on them in this game, so it's not really worth it talking about here. Ikadron here, Ikadron over here, he's fallen over. I'll just move my camera face out of the way. Charontid, we've got a Unidron forward observer to pick up the ghost mnemonica once the lieutenant dies. Another Daciarati here to throw smoke for the MSV3. In the far distance, there's also a infiltrating camo marker, which is the shrouded forward observer. Okay, and then going towards the middle, you can see the positioning of the Ikadron. You can see the slave drone as well for my Dr. Worm, who's on the left-hand flank. So that's what we're looking at from the back. And there's the Dr. Worm there. So you can see there's the prone shrouded. We've got my HVT model there. And this is the Dr. Worm. So that's my deployment. With the reserve model, I'm planning on putting down the Anathaematic and hidden deployment in reserve, and then waiting for my opponent's reserve model to go down, and that way the positioning of my Rambo will be a secret until it's time for him to move out. So opponent immediately sets up a Guilung mine layer here with the mine there, so that if I move around the corner with it, with the shrouded, it'll blow up. But whenever I see this, it's a bit of a giveaway. It's a bit of a tell. Because that model there is not prone, it's pretty obvious that it's a mine. When you've got 2 normal camo markers next to each other like that, it's very likely. And it's not exactly going to be the case that the mine's on the staircase and the real model's up there, because it could get shot by the Charontid. My opponent knows that. So by the power of deduction, we know it's a mine. I don't even need to reveal it. Elsewhere, this is towards the middle of the table. He has got a Guilung hacker here and a Daofei Spitfire lieutenant there, and this is his HVT model towards the center of the table. Further back, okay, so he's got a Minesweeper helper bot, Minesweeper baggage bot, I should say, a Pheasant Red Fury. This is a Warcore. There's the the Celestial Guard control device with smoke grenade launcher, a Shaolin Monk over here, that's his Dalfei over there, which we looked at previously, Quang Shi, another Quang Shi, and he's going to be putting his Xian Warrior on this rooftop later on when he shuts down his reserve model. Towards the middle, another Shaolin Monk's there. We've got a Flash Pulse bot hidden in the shadows, probably not very visible in the photo. Quang Shi, Shaolin Monk. So his lists are starting to become a bit more like the lists that I take for my YuJing lists. I'm putting down my reserve model on the left-hand flank, just because I saw an opportunity to go and potentially sepsitize his Guilang mine layer. So that would be a win for me, because that Guilang can just go back into camo and hide there for the rest of the game, and it's taking his points, which he'd use for capturing zones, and shifting them over to me. So even doing that would be a huge win for the Anathaematic. So he's planning on moving this way down the flank after I've killed the Warcore, and then potentially picking up maybe a Quang Shi, the baggage bot as well, trying to reduce the number of orders he has. And my opponent, reserve model, Xian Warrior, nothing surprising on the high ground. So Anathaematic now moving out, and you can see what's happening here. The Warcore delays and doesn't shoot me with a flash pulse, but I decided rather than moving the Anathaematic around there to shoot him, I'd use the Charontid to do that first, and then hide the Charontid on the high ground. So that was the plan. We'll find out later that it turned out to be a terrible plan, but for now, there's a coordinated order with the Charontid moving up. By the way, guys, with the new rules, you are not allowed to spend a command token to reduce the order pool by 2 if they only have a single combat group, but you can spend the command token to reduce the number of coordinator or command tokens that the enemy spends, even if they have 10 models. So that's what he did. Only one coordinated order. So the Dacharatse, although they used Impetuous initially, are coordinating back behind the walls. The Anathaematic moves forward, the Charontid moves forward, and then it will be able to climb up here, hopefully avoid a flash pulse from the Warcore, who's all the way over here, and then blast them with the HMG through that avenue there. In retrospect, that's stupid. I should just fired with the Anathaematic, and if you got a crit flash pulse, then too bad. You know, life's unfair. But this position here is great for the Charontid. I should have just left him there. So Anathaematic, after the coordinate order, ends up here, just out of line of sight of this Guilang. And then Charontid, moving up to the top of the building, shoots the Warcore successfully, kills him, and then tucks in just next to that little sign here. So goes prone, goes up next to this for some cover. So he should be okay. Then, okay, so here's the picture of the Charontid. If you look at him in the background, just shooting at this Warcore and destroying him. You can see over here that there's the position of the Guilang, but he's prone, and the Anathaematic is currently hiding out in that block there. So let's move to that. Anathaematic is now able to use intuitive attack with the Sepsitor. Now I want to make the point here, guys, that intuitive attack is better than a normal sort of shot at him with surprise shot, for example, because it allows me to actually roll for it and use my massive willpower 16 to win a face-to-face roll, whereas a dodge against a normal Sepsitor is just him passing a normal roll and dodging it anyway. So what happens is that I break him out of camouflage. It is the Guilang mine layer. The Sepsitor beats the dodge, and then he annoyingly passes the damage, his BTS check, by rolling an 18, which was really, really frustrating, because now that I attack him, he's just going to dodge, and I've only got one charge left because it's a normal Sepsitor and not a Sepsitor plus. So with the Guilang revealed, the Anathaematic starts moving around, blasts him with the plasma rifle and destroys him. So he's gone. So shoots him there, and then starts shooting up this guy as we come around the corner. There's also a Quang Shi which is trying to dodge out of the way, which you can see from the background. So the Anathaematic now is able to fire through, and the good thing about this, though, is that correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the plasma template is measured from the back of the model space, like this. Now, if that's incorrect, I'm sure you guys will be the first to tell me, and we've probably done it wrong. We didn't bother checking the impact template rules, but it's probably in there somewhere. But luckily, this position allows me to destroy the robot and the Quang Shi in the background with some searing hot plasma. So that actually nets a couple more regular orders. I want to point out, too, that there's a flash pulse bot in the shadows here, and the Anathaematic has started at this position and moved over here with a short skill. But to begin with in that order, there was a line of sight through the line there. So we're also shooting at the flash pulse bot as well. But unluckily, failing to destroy him, even with some long-range plasma. So didn't get quite as many kills as I was hoping for, but there were still quite a lot of them. And then pulling back around the corner closer to my side of the battlefield, going back into camo mode, because I don't want to get shinobu'd, I don't want to get a tiger soldier coming and killing me. The marker state's the best protection, and the great thing about this is that if somebody comes around and discovers me, and it's like an Onuwaban or something, I can use that Sepsitor to defend myself. Alright, so Charontid on the building, prone, behind the wall, happy days. Now, we've got some Impetuous moving out in the YuJing turn, so we all know what that looks like. Shell and Monk moving out, but not bothering to put the smoke down, just moving on, cranking on forward. Now, here's the thing. We've got a Daofei which moves up the stairs, and then moves over to this point here, and my opponent realized that, okay, there's just enough height there, because this building is taller than the building the Charontid's on, and the Silhouette 2 gives him extra height, and the Charontid's base is so fat that you can actually see over the lip of the wall and actually see me, even though I've got a little bit of cover, he's able to now shoot at me. So this was sort of, this made me lament that, okay, well, it's going to turn into a bit of a downer of a game, losing like an 80-point model for nothing, when really I should have just left him behind total cover. I thought that I could achieve total cover on that rooftop while prone, but hey, it's Infinity. You know, you got line of sight with silhouettes and everything. Just have to suck it up. Now, we thought with Armor 8 that I would last for a while, but my opponent just kills me straight away. 2 wounds, NWI just rips through them. The unconscious marker is just there for a wound marker. After several orders, the Charontid is just dead, which is sad. Luckily, in the moniker, though, Lieutenant goes to the next in command, the Unidron down on the staircase. So, with that in mind, he's also moving out with the Pheasant, just getting into a different position. Can't remember what the plan was there. I think he just wanted to avoid getting plasmid by the Anathaematic in the following turn. And Shell and Monk moving over here to try and discover and then get in close combat, but he failed the discover roll, so I got off lightly there. To be fair, though, if he had managed to get in close combat, I probably could have gotten out of that by just shooting at the close combat, or going over there with the Dacharatse and going close combat with the helper bonus. So it's my turn too. So luckily I've got a friend here. Rather than exposing the Anathaematic straight away, in fact, what I did is I used a coordinated order to come around cover and come back again. Also move out with the Anathaematic at the same time. Shoot with everybody, we'll both play both models at that Shell and Monk, and then 2 models elsewhere I managed to move them around further with the coordinated order. The Dacharatsu were also involved. So here they are here. Just coming to a point where I am not getting into line of sight of the chain rifle. And with this going off here, the Shell and Monk is destroyed by the Anathaematic quite handily, even with just the 1 burst. Okay, so looking at the battlefield, the Anathaematic is moving down the flank again. The Dacharatse is moving over to here, and the plan is to actually get onto this building and get rid of these guys. Now, I thought for a moment that I could lob a grenade up there, but to speculative fire with a grenade, you actually need a non-marker target, but with 2 markers there, I couldn't actually do that. So the plan was to move up and use chain rifle. There's also another Dacharatse which has moved around here after realizing he didn't want to take on the Monk. So Anathaematic now. In the distance, there is a flash pulse bot, and the Anathaematic is just going to pull around here, fire his plasma gun, and try and eliminate him. But unfortunately, long range, mimetism, and cover -9, so needing 4s to hit didn't really work out. Wasn't even able to take out that robot, which is kind of painful. So Dacharatse moving on top of the building, and then trying to move up the stairs, but realizing, gosh, I didn't quite have as many orders as I would have wanted to, so decides to go prone instead. So that was a bit of a shame. Turns into a bit of a missed turn, really. This photo shows where I was going to move to, but we retracted this move because I was still in the same order and decided to take it back. So we have a position here where if I leave my Anathaematic there, the Sen Warrior just stands up and shoots me, so he just withdraws further back behind the wall of that building. Just got to play it safe. And my Lieutenant, the Unidron, moves down the staircase, provides a bit of an ARO to this alleyway area here, because there's going to be a Guangxi and a Shell and Monk coming through that area, and they're not very good at using the pistol. The Unidron can at least plap off a couple of shots with the plasma carbine in ARO, so that will help. Alright, YuJing turn 2. Shell and Monk moving towards the Dacharatse. Impetuous. the Guangxi. Now the Shaolin Monk moves around the side here. Just coming along here, and he knows that there's actually a Dutch Ratso around the corner, but this is the Unidron here firing at him with the Plasma Carbine, and unfortunately not blasting him to death this time around. So there you go, Shaolin Monk going to be moving around towards this way, and this Dutch Ratso is going to have to perform a chain of facing to be able to protect with the chain rifle. Alright, so what happens here is that he sees an opportunity to destroy the Anathaematic. So we get the control device guy moving around the side here and then pulling back, firing a smoke grenade to the point where he needs to defend the CN warrior. So there's the smoke going down in front of the Anathaematic, which is in marker state. This is going to allow the CN warrior to start moving down the stairs and eventually get into a position to take advantage of that smoke marker. It's going to take him quite a few orders to get around there, but you can see where he's going. He's come down the staircase. He's just going to pop around the side of this building. There's a smoke template there, so he's going to discover the Anathaematic first and then shoot him. Now, we know at this point that if he fails to discover, this is a totally wasted turn, and the Anathaematic can attack back in the following turn and probably destroy him. What happens, though, is he does reveal the Anathaematic and then does start shooting at him, and I don't even have cover at this point, so this is kind of sad. Armor 5, but nope, Anathaematic is shot and goes unconscious. I want to stress at this point that at this point in the game, we made a pretty serious mistake, which kind of invalidates the result of this game in some ways. And that is that, for some reason, probably after playing Achilles for a while, is that I thought that the Anathaematic has 3 wounds. He does not have 3 wounds. He's got 2 wounds plus NWI. Now, if you decide to allow him to go into NWI and he takes a further wound, he's removed from the table. And as played in this turn, I got shot 3 times, I went unconscious, and I shouldn't have done that. We only realized that later. What I could have done, though, is there was a point where he was reduced to just 2 wounds, so I could have chosen to go unconscious. So retrospectively, we played it as if I had done that. Also, my opponent got crits and wounds straight away, so I was a little bit unlucky to even get that far to begin with, but I just want to point out that this guy has 2 wounds, NWI, and you've got to think very carefully once you get down to, 2 wounds taken as to whether you want to drop into unconscious or just be removed. If you know your opponent is going to keep shooting at you and wipe you out, well, probably go NWI, but if you're able to go prone behind a wall, then maybe you can get doctored later. Alright, well, with that out of the way, we've also got the Pheasant moving down the stairs a bit further as well to get into a better position. And Adalfe also repositioning himself on the stairs too. Might have even been the Guilung moving along. Let's just have a little look, see at what we've got. So there's the Dutch Ratso there. We've got the Guilung moving onto the staircase. Flashbulb Spot's still alive. These models here are prone, so they're fine, but the Sien Warrior has just moved out into the open and will reposition behind cover by the end of the turn. Okay. So, for some reason, he's moved the Guilung into this spot on the staircase, which is actually quite a blunder, really, because now, in my turn, the Impetuous moves the Dutch Ratso here, and it didn't even realize that was going to happen, so a real mistake for my opponent, because now the chain rifle just scoops these 2 guys here. Because the bot is on the lower ground, it won't hit that robot, but now the Guilung has to dodge out of camo marker state, and so does the Guangxi. Luckily for him, though, dodging means that I'm unlikely to kill him with the chain rifle, so I decided to just fire both pistol shots at the Guilung. This results in me getting shot by a Sien Warrior, chain rifle from the dude here, and generally making a mess where I just got shot and didn't cause any damage, so he's okay. But this is a Guilung assault hacker, and he's standing up as well, so that could be a bit of an issue for the rest of my turn, because what I want to do is send Dr. Worm over to revive the Anathaematic, which I do eventually manage to do. But like I stressed earlier, I shouldn't have been able to do that if I had chosen to sustain 3 wounds, if you guys follow me there. We've got a bit of a shootout here between the Shaolin Monk and Dutch Ratso. I managed to dodge his bullets. Time for the Shrouded Fort Observer to appear here and surprise attack at the Guilung. Now, the Guilung's got MSV1, but it doesn't avoid surprise shot. I'm Ballistic Skill 12, I think, or Ballistic Skill 11. Anyway, I did get enough hits to kill him and destroyed the Assault Hacker, luckily. So that's going to help, because otherwise he would have been AOing me as the Dr. Worm moves out. So Dr. Worm moving over this way to try and revive the Anathaematic who's here, and his helper slave moving across the table as well, just because every little point helps when you're trying to dominate zones later on. This is my last turn. So as the worm moves over here, he's got to avoid the Sand Warrior. So the Sand Warrior's got a silhouette 2 here, but this dead robot is a silhouette 4, and it's actually taking up a bit of space. If Dr. Worm goes prone and just slithers his way into base contact with the Anathaematic, we found that he's actually able to avoid line of sight. I really didn't want to be seen here because the Sand Warrior potentially might have been able to fire a nanopulsar over top of his corpse here and clip both these friendly models. Now, very important roll to try and revive the Anathaematic, and luckily I passed it. If I'd failed it, well, that would have been really, really bad. But moving in, reviving the Anathaematic, cinematically styled here, Anathaematic is able to stand up, move through my own model here, shoot at the Sand Warrior, and the Sand Warrior has to dodge, because if he does not dodge, then I can Sepsitorize him. And Sepsitorizing him would be even better than killing him, to be honest. Because then I can spend maybe my last order moving the Sand Warrior into the deployment zone. And that means that not only does he not have the weight of the Sand Warrior to capture a zone, but he's having to counteract the weight of my newly Sepsitorized model. But anyway, doesn't happen. Plasma gun goes off at him, doesn't even kill him. So even at Ballistic Skill 13 plus range against a dodge, didn't even scratch him. So unlucky to not cause any damage there. But hey, Anathaematic shouldn't even be alive. So what he's doing now is just moving carefully into a corner. He's wounded because the doctor's only, repaired 1 wound. And to be fair, I mean, he should have been unconscious after taking 2 wounds, so repairing him at that point brings him back to 1 wound received. And just trying to tuck into a building here where we might get cover against the Dalfei or potentially the Sand Warrior coming around the side, right? Okay, so next, you can see here, my lieutenant just moving out here. He wants to be in a position where he can dominate the zone, trying to blast this model, the Shaolin, with the plasma carbine, but not succeeding. Right, opponent, final turn, Shaolin Monk moving forward, plasma carbine firing at him, I think does manage to destroy him. Or no, what happens is the Dachshunds, they manages to engage him, but the plasma doesn't go off on him. A ninja appears, and the ninja was hanging out behind this red box, but moves over here because the ninja is needed to make sure the Anathaematic doesn't actually succeed in taking his objective strip if the Anathaematic is not destroyed. So there is that. Also the Guangxi moving up as well. With Impetuous. Okay, so Sand Warrior moves around the side, gets line of sight past the dead robot, and shoots at Dr. Worm and destroys Dr. Worm, unsurprisingly. The Dalfei is able to shoot at the Anathaematic. Now, the Anathaematic has carefully wiggled into a little bit of cover there. It may not look like cover from here, but we checked it and he does have some cover. So with TO Camo and with Armor 8 effectively, the Anathaematic is able to survive the shooting from the Dalfei. At least initially. I think he does manage to get me in the end. I can't quite remember what the outcome was. But the Sand Warrior does eventually move around here. And the Sand Warrior is able to just wriggle into a position where he's able to shoot me in the back because my line of sight has to be turned enough that I can see the Dalfei as well. So, yeah, I think in this game, he spent his very last order just eventually getting in there and killing me. No, that's not what happened. I'm pretty sure the Anathaematic did manage to survive because the Sand Warrior gets into position, tries shooting at point blank range with the HMG, but he's -3 cover, -3 for range, and doesn't kill the Anathaematic. And then what happens later is that he doesn't want to keep shooting at me at that range because I change facing after taking that hit and face him, so he can't really shoot at me, otherwise he gets Sepsitorized, which would be a disaster being the last turn, right? So what happens then is he decides to move his pheasant, who's the data tracker, by the way, to try and get some points from the middle zone. So the pheasant's moving past, but the pheasant hasn't got anywhere it can cautious move, and with the Anathaematic still alive, the pheasant trying to get around here, but feels that he still isn't in the central strip. So what he's got to do is actually move out with the Spitfire and have a face-to-face roll with our friend the Anathaematic. But doesn't go very well though, because the Anathaematic hits with the counter shot arrow and destroys the pheasant after all of that. So the result is that the Anathaematic does actually destroys the pheasant and survives. Now, like I said before, this is a miss game. This is not really a truly felt result because realistically there should be no Anathaematic on the board at the end at all, and I should have done something else with my final turn, like moving guys up the field. Bit and Kiss should have got in there and so forth. But as played, I mean, if it had been the case that I had known to go unconscious after taking 2 wounds, and if my opponent had not destroyed me after that by just shooting me again with the Xian Warrior, and if I had come up and revived myself, then technically it's a win here, because even though he's got the Dao Fei and the Xian Warrior, he's not realized that the Dao Fei is not actually in the central strip, because this building is just, I mean, the height of it just correlates to this bit here, is not quite across the line. So in the central strip, I've got the Shrouded, and I've got a Slave Drone, which is actually a null state, to be fair. I've got my Dachiratsi, which is in combat with the Shaolin Monk, but the Dachiratsi is more expensive than the Shaolin Monk. So I've clearly got more points worth of stuff in the central strip. In my own strip, I've got the Unidron Lieutenant, and I've got an Ichatron with baggage, so plenty of points in my strip. And in the strip closest to him, well, yeah, I've got the Anathaematic, which is worth a lot of points, but the Dao Fei and the Xian Warrior and the Guangxi are more than enough to counteract that, but he's only got a point, so that means that technically I win. I don't like to think of this game as a win for me. I didn't really feel the win. I got the line of sight wrong for the Charontid, and we misplayed the rule with NWI for the Anathaematic. But despite that, I still feel like we learnt a few things about this mission. I felt like we sort of got a feel for what this 10-order CA list is like. I'd love to give this list another go at some point. I'll just play a bit more conservatively with the Charontid and hopefully get a bit luckier with the Sepsitor. So that was going to be really cool. I've also thought about even using the Spitfire Anathaematic, but to be honest with you, the Plasma Rifle is so much better because the ability to actually damage things without them like surviving, so less orders spent, and to ignore cover in some cases, and even clip 2 models with the impact, is just more valuable than the Sepsitor on this particular model, because you're tough enough to go right up there. And the fantastic thing about the Sepsitor is not the ability of the Sepsitor itself, but the fact that you force Achilles and a Xian Warriors and that to dodge, because they don't want to lose their cube. So when they dodge, you just fire at them with the Plasma Rifle, and it's going to mean even more, hits on them. Hope you guys enjoy this game. I know you guys have been enjoying my my videos about army list design, so I'm going to do some more of those. I know you guys like them. But for now, hope you guys like this one. Good game. We'll see you next time.